I never thought betrayal would come from the two people I trusted the most. But here I am, sitting in my car outside my brother's house, staring at the glowing screen of my phone, my heart hammering so violently in my chest I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. The text messages stared back at me like cruel little daggers, each word carving deeper into my sanity. Messages between my wife and him. Her words cut me deeper than any knife. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." And his reply, "We have to be careful. He can't find out." My vision blurred for a second, not from tears but from a surge of raw, uncontrollable rage that mixed with disbelief. My hand trembled so much I almost dropped the phone. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My chest was locked, my throat tight, like invisible hands were squeezing the air out of me. I leaned my head back against the cold leather of the car seat, shutting my eyes, willing it all to be some cruel nightmare. But when I opened them again, the glow of those words still stared at me. My wife, Emily. My brother, Mark. Together. To understand why this betrayal hit me like a freight train, you need to know the background. Emily and I had been married for 6 years. 6 years of what I thought was love, trust, and partnership. We had built a home together, one filled with laughter and arguments over silly things like who left the milk out or whose turn it was to do the dishes. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And then there was Lily, our daughter, just 4 years old, with her messy curls and bright green eyes that could melt even the coldest heart. She was the center of my universe, the reason I worked long hours, the reason I kept pushing even when life felt heavy. And Mark, he wasn't just my brother. He was my best friend, my role model growing up. 3 years older than me, he was always the strong one, the protector. He taught me how to ride my bike when Dad wasn't around, stood up for me in school when bullies tried to push me down, even gave me advice when I was nervous about asking Emily out back in college. Mark was the guy I looked up to, the one person I thought would never stab me in the back. And yet here I was, holding evidence that proved otherwise. I scrolled further down the messages, my heart twisting with every new word. They weren't vague. They weren't innocent. They were explicit, raw confessions of lust and stolen moments. Hotel receipts. Mentions of nights when Emily had told me she was working late. My brother telling her how much he missed her touch. Her telling him how he made her feel alive again. I wanted to throw up. I could remember those nights vividly, sitting at home with Lily, making her mac and cheese, watching cartoons, wondering when Mommy would come home. I never once doubted her. Not once. And now those nights took on a whole new, grotesque meaning. I slammed the phone face down on the passenger seat, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My breath came out ragged, uneven. A million thoughts tore through my mind. How long had this been going on? Why him? Why my brother of all people? I thought back to the last family barbecue we had just 2 weeks ago. Emily laughing at one of Mark's stupid jokes, her hand brushing his arm accidentally. I remember thinking nothing of it. He was my brother, after all. Why would I ever suspect? Now those little gestures, those stolen glances, replayed in my mind with sickening clarity. They weren't innocent. They were signs. Signs I had been too blind, too trusting to see. I reached for the phone again, scrolling all the way to the top of the conversation. The first message was from months ago. Months. I can't stop thinking about you since that night. My hands went cold. This wasn't some impulsive fling. This was an affair. A relationship. One that had been built right under my nose, while I was busy being a husband, a father, a brother. The weight of it pressed down on me like a mountain. Images flooded my mind. Emily walking down the aisle in her white dress, tears in her eyes as she promised to love me forever. Mark standing beside me as my best man, smiling proudly as he handed me the ring. How could that day, one of the happiest of my life, now feel like a cruel setup for this betrayal? I thought about Lily. Sweet, innocent Lily. She adored her Uncle Mark. He'd swing her around in the backyard, bring her little presents, even babysit when Emily and I wanted a date night. Did she have any idea? No, of course not. But the thought of her tiny hands reaching for the man who had betrayed her father made me sick. The car felt smaller, suffocating. I rolled down the window, letting the cool night air hit my face, but it didn't help. I was drowning in a tidal wave of anger, pain, and confusion. Part of me wanted to storm into that house right then and there, confront Mark, demand answers, maybe even put my fist through his smug face. But another part of me knew I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I had figured out what to do, how to protect my daughter from this storm that was about to tear our family apart. My phone buzzed suddenly, startling me. A new message. From Emily. Are you coming home soon? Lily misses you. The irony nearly made me laugh. Home. She wanted me to come home, to the place where she pretended to be my loyal wife, after sneaking behind my back with my own brother. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Instead, I just sat there, the glow of the phone screen lighting up my clenched jaw, my thoughts spinning in a dark, endless loop. For the first time in my life, I didn't know who I could trust. My wife was a liar. My brother was a traitor. And I was the fool caught in the middle, left holding the shattered pieces of a life I thought was real. The street outside Mark's house was silent. No movement, no lights. I wondered if Emily had been here, in that house, in his bed. The thought made bile rise in my throat. I put my head in my hands and whispered to myself, what the hell am I supposed to do now? And that was when I noticed something strange. A shadow moved across the window of Mark's living room. A female silhouette. My heart stopped. Was it her? Was Emily inside right now? I gripped the steering wheel again, every muscle in my body trembling with rage and adrenaline. My world was crumbling, and I had no idea what the next move should be. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same again. And as I sat there, staring at that window, the messages replaying in my mind, one question burned like fire in my chest. How could the two people I loved most destroy me like this? The next morning, Emily acted like everything was perfectly normal. She kissed me lightly on the cheek before leaving for work, her lips brushing my skin as if nothing in the world was wrong. She poured Lily a bowl of cereal, humming softly under her breath, moving around the kitchen with the same casual grace she always had. I sat there, watching her every move, the spoon in my hand trembling slightly as I stirred my coffee. Each detail that once seemed comforting now felt sinister. The way she avoided my eyes for just a fraction of a second too long. The way her smile seemed a little too practiced. The way her phone was always within reach, flipped screen side down on the counter. Did you sleep well last night? I asked suddenly, my voice carefully calm. She froze for the tiniest moment. Most people wouldn't have noticed it, but I did. I was studying her like a detective studying a suspect. Then she smiled again, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Of course. Why do you ask? I shrugged, pretending to be casual, sipping my coffee while my insides churned with rage. Just wondering. But I wasn't wondering. I was testing her. And she had failed. When she left for work, I felt like the walls of the house were closing in. I couldn't sit still. I walked through the living room, past the framed family photos that now felt like cruel jokes. One of Emily and me on our wedding day, holding hands, smiling as though we'd found forever. One of Lily on Mark's shoulders at the zoo, laughing so loudly you could almost hear it through the glass. How many of those memories were poisoned? How many of those smiles were fake? By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Mark. Hey, you want to grab a beer tonight? I tried to sound casual, but my voice cracked slightly. There was a pause on the other end. Too long. Then his voice came, slower than usual. Yeah, sure. But can we do tomorrow instead? I'm kind of busy. Busy. That word hit me like a bullet. Busy with what? Busy with who? I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth hurt. Yeah, sure, I said, forcing my voice to stay light. Tomorrow works. When I hung up, I slammed the phone on the table. Busy. Of course. The timing lined up too perfectly. Emily working late. Mark busy. How could I have been so blind? That night, after Lily was asleep and Emily was in the shower, I went into her purse. My hands shook as I dug through her things. I hated myself for snooping, but I couldn't stop. I needed proof. And there it was. A movie ticket stub, dated just 3 nights ago. A night she told me she was working overtime. I pulled it out slowly, my fingers numb. But what made my stomach drop was that there were 2 stubs, not one. She hadn't gone to the movies alone. I shoved the tickets back just as the shower turned off. Emily came out, wrapped in a towel, humming to herself. Drops of water slid down her bare shoulders, and for a second, I almost forgot. Almost. But then I remembered the texts. The tickets. The lies. She smiled at me. What are you doing up so late? Just couldn't sleep, I muttered, forcing a yawn. Inside, I was boiling. The next day, I followed her. I told her I had an early meeting and left the house before she did, parking my car a block away. When she drove off, I tailed her, keeping a safe distance. My heart pounded the entire time, my palms sweaty on the steering wheel. She didn't drive to work. She drove across town, to a quiet neighborhood I didn't recognize. She parked outside a small cafe. I waited, watching from down the street. 10 minutes later, Mark's car pulled up. My brother stepped out, looking around before heading inside. My vision tunneled. My own brother, my own wife, meeting in broad daylight, as if hiding in plain sight. I gripped the steering wheel so tight I thought it would snap. I wanted to storm inside, scream, expose them. But instead, I sat frozen, my mind racing. I needed more. I needed undeniable proof. So I waited. An hour passed, then another. Finally, they came out, laughing. Emily touched his arm as they walked to their cars, a gesture so casual, yet so intimate it made bile rise in my throat. I ducked low, praying they wouldn't see me. My heart thundered in my ears, sweat dripping down my neck. When they drove off in separate directions, I stayed there for a long time, shaking, my hands numb. That night, Emily acted as if nothing had happened. She asked about my day, kissed me goodnight, curled up beside me in bed like she always had. Her warmth against me felt like fire, burning my skin. I stared at the ceiling in the darkness, my mind a tornado of fury and pain. Every breath she took, every gentle sigh in her sleep felt like a mockery. At 3 a.m., I finally slipped out of bed, pacing the living room, my fists clenched. The silence of the house pressed down on me, broken only by the ticking of the clock on the wall. I thought about confronting her right then, waking her up, shoving the evidence in her face, demanding the truth. But then I thought about Lily. Her little face when she looked up at both of us, her tiny arms reaching for mommy and daddy. How could I blow up her world like that? How could I let her innocence be destroyed by the ugliness of betrayal? But how long could I live like this? Pretending everything was fine when my insides were being ripped apart? And then, just as I was about to collapse on the couch, my phone buzzed. A new notification. Another message. This time, it wasn't Emily's. It was from Mark. And what I read next made my blood run cold. The notification lit up my screen in the blue-dark living room like a flare. I thought it would be another automated alert or a late-night spam message, but it was from Mark. For a second, my brain didn't register it. My thumb hovered, my lungs forgot to move. Then I opened it. Rear entrance. Park on Maple, not the lot. 7 o'clock. Don't text once you're inside. I read it twice, then a third time, each pass scraping another layer off my composure. Rear entrance. Maple. The instructions were so specific they made my stomach lurch. I stared at the tiny dots that said he was typing again. Use the service elevator. Room number in the envelope at the front desk under Jensen. Key inside. Don't bring your phone upstairs. A noise left my throat that didn't sound like me. I clamped a hand over my mouth and read it again, like repetition might transform the meaning. Room number. Envelope. Don't bring your phone. It was a system. This wasn't clumsy. This was a routine. I didn't respond. I took a screenshot, then another. I emailed them to myself, saved them to the cloud, printed to PDF like a man building a firebreak around his sanity. My hands shook, but the movements were automatic. Tap, save, upload, send. Evidence. If I had to drag this through hell, I would need a map. He texted again. Delete these after reading. She'll say it's overtime again. 6:30 babysitter. Don't be late. I could taste metal. She'll say it's overtime again. My wife's lie felt like a knife pressed gently against my throat, the threat worse than the cut. I typed, erased, typed again, deleted. Any response could give me away. I needed him to think Emily was on the other end of the thread. I finally sent 2 words that felt safely noncommittal. Got it. The reply was instant. Good girl. Good girl. The room tilted. I sat down very slowly on the arm of the couch, because if I didn't, I was going to fall. Good girl. He thought he was talking to her. He'd sent it to me by mistake. He'd lined up their night like he was ordering takeout, and then rewarded her with 2 words that made my skin crawl. My thumb hovered over his name. I could call. I could scream. I could end this now. But the part of me that still woke up at 6 a.m. to pack Lily's lunch, the part that knew how custody battles worked, the part that understood that rage without proof is just noise. That part took the phone out of my shaking hand and set it on the table. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily's hand on his arm outside the cafe, heard their muted laughter, saw that whispered, "Good girl," glowing like a brand. At 5 a.m., I made coffee I didn't drink and stared at the backsplash until the grout lines started to look like roads on a map I couldn't read. At 7:15, Lily padded into the kitchen, hair a wild halo, feet whispering against the tile. "Daddy." Her voice was sticky with sleep. I turned so fast my neck cracked. "Hey, bug." I swallowed the shards in my throat and crouched to her height. "Pancakes." My voice came out bright, cheerful, a parody of its true self. She nodded seriously, like we were negotiating a treaty. I poured batter into circles that weren't quite circles. When I flipped them, the room filled with the warm, sweet smell that had always meant Saturday. My hands found the rhythm they knew. Press the spatula, slide, lift, but every time I blinked, I saw the words "good girl" scrawled across the inside of my eyelids like graffiti. Emily floated into the kitchen at 8:10 in a silky robe and a tired smile. She kissed Lily's head, then mine, her lips cool and perfunctory, and for a second I swayed. "Smells amazing," she murmured, opening the cabinet where we keep the syrup. Her fingers brushed the exact spot without looking. That intimacy of knowing where the syrup is, where the Band-Aids are, where I keep the spare keys, stabbed harder than any stranger's touch could have. "Big day?" I asked, like a man tossing a coin to see which side of reality we were going to live on. She grabbed a mug, poured coffee, stirred in sugar. Overtime. Mary called in sick again." She rolled her eyes with a practiced weariness. "I'll probably be late." Air rushed into my chest so fast it burned. "Late," I echoed. The word was a plank over a ravine. "Yeah." She didn't meet my eyes. "Don't wait up." I set a plate in front of Lily and watched syrup pool like amber glass. "We'll be fine." Emily reached for her phone. The screen lit the underside of her jaw in electric blue. I caught a flash of her lock screen, a photo of Lily and me at the beach last summer, both of us laughing, mouths open, hair wild, sunlight painting the edges of us bright. She'd chosen that picture. She carried it around like a talisman while she typed out lies with the same hands that had held my face in the dark. She showered. She dressed. She wrapped her hair in a smooth knot that made her look efficient and loyal. She left the robe puddled on the bed like shed skin. She tucked her blouse into her skirt, slipped on black heels that clicked like metronomes on the hardwood. At the door, she turned back, eyes soft. "Love you," she said, like muscle memory. "Love you," I said, and tasted iron. When the door shut, I stood in the silence until the refrigerator motor kicked on. Then I moved. I packed Lily's tiny backpack, favorite stuffed rabbit, a water bottle with stickers peeling at the edges, a sweater because every air-conditioned room is an icebox. I texted my mom and told her I had a late meeting, asked if Lily could spend the night. My mom sent back a string of heart emojis, and of course, bring her by after lunch. I felt both grateful and guilty that love could be this easy in one direction and impossible in another. We spent the morning at the park. I pushed Lily on the swing, and she screamed in delight, "Higher, Daddy," and for 30 seconds at a time, the world was only sky and the squeal of chain links. She wanted to race leaves in the creek, and we did. She wanted a chocolate chip cookie the size of her face, and I bought it. When she smeared it into her hair, I laughed so hard other parents looked over and smiled. It all felt like stolen sunshine. At 1:30, I dropped her at my mom's. Mom hugged me too long and pulled back to search my face. "You okay?" she asked gently. "Yeah." I lied and kissed her cheek. "Big day?" I sat in the car outside her house for 5 minutes, phone in my lap, engine ticking as it cooled, hands curled and uncurled on the steering wheel. Then I started the car, pulled onto the street, and drove to a store I'd never been inside before, the kind of place with too many security cameras and aisles that smell like rubber and cold metal. "Can I help you find something?" the clerk asked, eyes flicking to the wedding band I hadn't removed and the tremor I couldn't stop. "Audio recorder," I said. My voice sounded like I'd borrowed it. He showed me a row of devices so small they looked like toys. I picked one that claimed 6 hours of high-quality recording and a battery life that outlasted shame. I bought a second phone charger, a notebook, a pack of pens. In the parking lot, I opened the recorder with my teeth, read the instructions twice, hit arm, and slipped it into my jacket pocket. The tiny red light blinked like a heartbeat. At 5:40, my phone buzzed. A new message from Mark. Don't park near the lobby. Maple Street side. She'll be there at 6:55. I typed nothing. I took another screenshot. My hands were steady now. Anger had cooled into something heavier, denser, like a metal bar I could lift and swing. At 6:31, I pulled onto Maple. The hotel rose out of the humid evening like a stack of beige secrets. Corporate. Anonymous. Rows of windows that reflected a sky the color of bruised fruit. I killed my headlights half a block away and waited. My pulse tapped against my tongue. At 6:49, Mark's car slid into a space across from the dumpsters. He wore a navy button-down and the watch our dad had left him. He checked his phone, looked both ways, and took the service entrance like a man who'd memorized the floor plan. At 6:56, Emily's car glided into view. She parked under a streetlight, and for a second her face was illuminated. A floating oval, lips parted, eyes scanning. She looked like a version of herself I had never met. She sat for a moment, then pulled down the visor, checked her reflection, reapplied lipstick with a hand so steady it made mine ache. She got out, smoothed her skirt, and walked quickly toward the same door Mark had used, heels silent on the patchy asphalt. She didn't look back. I swallowed hard and followed. The rear hallway smelled like old coffee and industrial cleaner. The carpet was a pattern of geometric lies. I kept my head down and moved with the fake confidence of a man who spent his life in beige corridors. The front desk was a rectangle of laminate, tended by a woman with reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. A brown envelope sat on the counter, half hidden beneath a brochure for local attractions. Jensen, black marker in neat, firm letters. The clerk glanced up. Checking in. I forced a cough. Meeting someone, I said, and kept walking. My hands itched to snatch the envelope, tear it open, look the room number in the face. But I didn't. Not yet. If I grabbed it, I would show my hand. I needed to see without being seen. I found the service elevator, the kind that hums like a tired refrigerator. I pressed the button and watched the floor numbers stutter down. When the doors opened, I stepped inside and hit 4. Because when Mark had looked up at the ceiling near the desk, I had seen him. The handle turned with a slow metallic click, the sound echoing down the hallway louder than it should have. I held my breath, every muscle in my body coiled tight, the red glow of the recorder steady against my ribs. The door opened an inch, then 2, and Mark's face appeared in the gap. His eyes darted left, then right, scanning the corridor. For a fraction of a second, his gaze swept past me, not settling. He muttered something over his shoulder, low, sharp. Then the door opened wider, and I saw her. Emily. She stood behind him, her blouse slightly wrinkled, hair loose in a way I had only ever seen when she wanted to look perfect without trying. She wasn't smiling now. She was anxious, nervous, her fingers twisting the strap of her purse. Mark stepped into the hall, closing the door just enough that she was half hidden. "What the hell are you doing here?" he hissed. His tone wasn't brotherly. It was the voice of a man afraid of being caught. For a second, I couldn't speak. Rage roared in my head, so loud it drowned everything else. My fists curled at my sides. "What am I doing here?" My voice cracked, then rose, shaking. "I should be asking you that, Mark. With my wife. In a hotel." Emily's face went pale. "Oh my God," she whispered, stepping fully into view. Her lips trembled. "It's not what you think. Not what I think." My laugh came out broken, bitter. "So those texts weren't you? The ones about how amazing last night was? The one where you said you couldn't stop thinking about him?" I jabbed a finger at my brother. "Or maybe the ones about sneaking around so I wouldn't find out. That wasn't you, Emily." Her eyes flooded with tears. She reached for me, but I stepped back, disgust rolling through me. "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "I can explain." "Explain?" I barked. "Explain how my wife and my brother decided to destroy me together? Explain how you looked me in the eyes this morning and told me you loved me while planning this?" Mark raised his hands, palms out, like he thought he could calm me. "Listen, man. Just calm down. Let's talk about this somewhere else." "No." My shout carried down the hall. A door opened 2 rooms away, a stranger's face peeking out before quickly disappearing again. I didn't care. Let them hear. Let the whole damn hotel hear. "You were supposed to be my brother," I spat at him. "The one person I could trust. And you." I turned to Emily, my voice breaking. "You promised me forever. You gave me Lily. You swore you loved me. Emily's tears spilled over, streaking down her cheeks. I do love you, she whispered desperately. The words detonated something inside me. Love me? I shook my head, choking on a bitter laugh. No. You loved this. Asterisk. I gestured to the space between her and Mark. Whatever this is. Whatever twisted thing you two have been doing behind my back. Mark stepped closer. You don't understand. Things haven't been good between you two for a while, and… Shut your mouth. I snapped, my voice low and dangerous. Don't you dare justify this. Don't you dare stand there and act like you were doing me a favor by sleeping with my wife. Emily sobbed, covering her face with her hands. It just happened. We didn't mean. You didn't mean? I cut her off, trembling. Months of lies. Hotel rooms. Fake overtime. Babysitters so you could sneak off. Don't stand there and tell me it just happened. The silence after my words was suffocating. The hum of the hallway lights filled the space like a cruel soundtrack. Finally, I stepped back, shaking my head. You know what the worst part is? It's not even the betrayal. It's that you both thought I was too blind to ever figure it out. That you thought I was stupid. Mark's face twisted, guilt flashing across his features. Then shame. Then something else, fear. I turned away before I did something I couldn't take back. My chest heaved, rage clawing at the edges of my control. I walked down the hall, each step echoing like a gavel strike. Behind me, I heard Emily's voice crack. Wait, please, just don't go like this. But I didn't stop. I pressed the elevator button with shaking hands. My reflection in the mirrored doors stared back at me, hollow eyes, clenched jaw, a man I barely recognized. The door slid open, and I stepped inside. As they closed, I caught one last glimpse of them standing there together in the hall. Emily crying, Mark frozen like a statue. The sight seared into me, a brand I would carry forever. The elevator hummed as it descended. I clenched my fists, the recorder still blinking red in my pocket, capturing every word, every confession, every tear. Proof. When the doors opened into the lobby, I walked out into the bright, sterile light, my chest tight, my head pounding. I didn't know what came next. Divorce papers, custody battles, maybe even fists thrown between brothers. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Nothing would ever be the same again. I drove home in silence, the city lights blurring past like streaks of accusation. My hands were locked on the steering wheel, knuckles pale, the recorder heavy in my pocket like a stone. Every second of that confrontation was there, her stammering, his excuses, my voice breaking. Proof carved into digital memory. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as always, quiet, warm, safe. But it wasn't. It would never be again. Inside, I went straight to Lily's room. She was gone, still at my mom's, but her toys were scattered across the carpet, her little shoes neatly lined up by the door. I sat on her bed and pressed my face into her pillow. It smelled like baby shampoo and innocence. My chest cracked open, and for the first time all day, the tears came. This wasn't just about me. This was about her future, about what kind of family she'd grow up in, what kind of father she needed me to be. Would she remember the fights? The silence? Would she ask one day why mommy and daddy weren't together anymore? I wiped my face with shaking hands. I couldn't let her live in lies. She deserved the truth, even if it shattered everything else. My phone buzzed again. Emily, please come back. We can talk. I love you. I stared at the words until they blurred. Talk? After months of deceit? Love? After nights in hotel rooms with my brother? Another buzz. This time from Mark. Don't ruin the family over this. We can fix it. Fix it. As if betrayal was a leaky pipe you could patch with tape. I dropped the phone on the bed and laughed, bitter and hollow. The two people who had destroyed my world were now begging me to keep it intact, for their sake, not mine. I opened my laptop, uploaded the recordings, backed them up twice. My hands moved calmly, almost mechanically. A plan was forming, cold and clear. Lawyers. Custody. Cutting them both out of my life like tumors. But when I closed the lid, the silence hit me again. Heavy. Final. I stood in the dark, staring at my reflection in the window. A man gutted by betrayal, but still standing. A father who would not let his daughter grow up in a house built on lies. And yet, in the deepest part of me, a question whispered, relentless and cruel. Should I destroy them both with the truth I now held? Or should I walk away and protect my daughter from ever knowing the depths of her mother's betrayal? What would you do?